Hello students and welcome to another video. I'm your teacher Mr. Flynn, and today we're going to be reviewing two things in our notes. We're looking at cell size and chromosomes. Okay. Now in this first part, right, we're talking about how when we change the size of cells and we make them bigger, they become less efficient. So here's an example of this. Right here we have a box with a nucleus in it. Right, this represents our cell, and let's just say that the sides of this are 2 centimeters. Okay, so our total volume is 8. But let's say we double the length. So now it's 4 centimeters, but if you notice, the area of it increases by 8 times. Okay, so what we're seeing here is that, yeah, you're doubling the side, but then the total area is being multiplied by 8 times. And so the area inside is greatly increased. Now, this has issues, and this actually tells us that as you make a cell bigger, its area becomes kind of exponential. It starts to just get bigger and bigger to a point where it's unsustainable. And bigger cells, like if I wanted to transport something from this end all the way across to that end, we're now traveling much further than compared to our smaller cell. Okay, and it's not just double the distance, it's much greater than that. Okay, and so there is a limit to how big cells can get, because if they get too big, they become very expensive, right? Transporting things across, they require more energy to do processes. It needs more parts and more matter, which means the organism needs to get more nutrients to keep that cell alive. All right, and if there's a breakdown over here, well, it's going to be much harder for it to get fixed because it's so big and we have to travel these great distances to fix them. All right, so there is a limit to how big cells can get, and it's based on how efficient they can be, because that's the goal. Their goal is to be efficient. All right, and if we have a much smaller cell, it's much more efficient at managing its daily duties for what it's doing that day, or what that cell is required to do, right? You can also relate this to houses, right? If you have a small house, it's easy to heat, it's easier to cool, it's easier to clean, right? Like right now, my wife and I, we live in a little rental house that her parents own, and we've lived in this house for a couple of years now, and it's kind of fun. It's been in the family tradition for a number of years. Like her parents owned it, her grandparents owned it, so it's kind of been in the family for a long time. It's this old house, but it only takes me about an hour or two to really clean our house because it's pretty small. We're building a house here soon, and eventually when we get into a larger home, it's going to be harder to clean. It's going to be more expensive to cool and heat in the summer because it's just bigger, right? And so you got to think about, when you relating a house to the size of a cell is pretty similar, right? The bigger the house, the more expensive the cost, but not just by double the cost, but more like 4 or 5 times, 8 times the cost, because the area is increased, not just one of the walls is bigger. Okay, now down below we have chromosomes. Okay, and we're relating, okay, what a chromosome is. Okay, so chromosomes, okay, this centerpiece here, this light blue X shape, okay, it is found inside of the nucleus of a cell. So you can kind of see how this drawing shows that, right? This chromosome is found in the nucleus. It's kind of blowing it up for you. All right, and then inside of our chromosome, we have a bunch of coiled up DNA. Now, DNA is what codes for our different traits, okay? All right, and our traits come from genes, which are just segments of DNA. All right, so this image here, this should be slight review, maybe some new information. But at the end of the day, okay, when we're looking at chromosomes, they're found in the nucleus, and it's just basically lots of coiled up DNA. All right, and there's parts that you need to know, like there's centromeres. You'll see pictures in your books of these little proteins that are inside that are being, the DNA is wrapped around, and those are called histones. I'm not going to require you to know that for the class, but it's good to know that there's actually more to this picture than what I'm showing you. But everything on here I expect you to know and understand and relate together, right? How genes are segments of DNA, coiled up DNA forms a chromosome, and those chromosomes are found inside of the cell. Okay? Thanks again for watching. If you have any questions, please come talk with me.